All right, today we're talking about some of the easiest money that you might not be making, high yield savings accounts. Let's get right into it. Let me start with a quick story. A number of years ago, I met with an individual and I was taking down some information from this guy, and I learned that he had over $400,000 sitting in an old-fashioned checking account earning essentially nothing. At the time, short-term interest rates were about 2%. So I told this guy, I said, look, if you don't do anything else, walk out of here today and establish a high-yield savings account, or maybe two if you want to split it up for FDIC purposes. That alone, with interest rates at 2%, was going to create $8,000 per year of additional income for this particular person. Now, I shared this story and I'm creating this video today because I routinely see situations that might not be quite as extreme as what I just described, but frequently people with, say, $50,000, $100,000, $150,000 in bank accounts with, one of the big financial institutions that pay virtually nothing. And what seems like such a simple concept, a high-yield savings account, is often very insightful or a great opportunity for a lot of folks. I wanted to share that with a broader audience today. Now, what is a high-yield savings account? Well, this is really just a generic phrase for any savings instrument that pays something significantly more than the big national brick-and-mortar banks. And I'm not talking, a few tenths of a percent. I'm talking 10 to 20 times more than some of those big banks. Now, if you're asking yourself, what's the catch? There really is no catch. It's just a different business model. The primary players in the high-yield savings space are online only. So they don't have these networks of physical bank branches throughout the United States that they have to pay, the real estate taxes or the lease and the employees and so on and so forth. Thus, these online banks can pay a higher rate for the deposits that they're taking because they don't have this other overhead. Now, there's a number of companies in this space. I'm going to highlight two that I have personal experience with. So right now, I'm primarily using Ally Bank, so ally.com. They have just a super slick platform. You can see up here their website. Take a look at the rates on their current savings product. Actually, they kind of have this nice analyzer they compare against the big banks here in the United States. And here's their present rate. I'm recording this. It's George Washington's birthday, one of my personal heroes, February 22nd, 2023. And the rate they're paying is 3.4%. And of course, they contrast that against Bank of America, Chase, and Wells Fargo. So this is a tool, again, I use personally, and it works great. No monthly maintenance fees, no minimum deposit to get things started. Capital One has a very similar offering. They call it their 360 Performance Savings, and right now the rate is the same as Ally. Again, no fees, no minimum to get started. So I just highlight these two because I've used these personally, but there's other players in this area. Speaking of other institutions in this area, I just want to highlight one last thing, and this is a resource if you want to kind of scan the market quickly for where rates are across high-yield savings. Bankrate.com does a great job of kind of pulling together all this data on, I think, a weekly basis. They update this, so they kind of show all the different players in this market. There's Capital One. Interestingly, Goldman Sachs has been trying to get into the consumer banking market with a high yield offering. You can see theirs looks relatively attractive today compared to Capital One, and so on and so forth. So this is a great resource, again, especially if you have maybe you got $1 million or more that you want to spread out. This is a quick reference to see where the big players are. Now, last but not least, just a few other things I think you should know. What's common with most of these savings vehicles is you are limited in terms of the amount of withdrawals you can make per month. I think Ally, for instance, is 6 withdrawals per month. So you can't use this like a checking account per se. I think that's just something to be aware of. The other thing, of course, is these rates are variable. They're very sensitive to what's going on in the broader bond market and what the Federal Reserve is doing. So obviously the Federal Reserve has been raising interest rates rapidly, particularly over the last 10 months or so. So you've seen the rates really ratchet up from, I think if we were to look back 12 to 14 months ago, interest rates on these instruments was probably around 0.5 point. And as you could see, now they're virtually all over 3%. And that's probably going to continue to tick up as long as the Federal Reserve is raising interest rates. But they can also go the opposite way. If the economy starts to soften, the Fed starts to cut rates, you have to know that, again, these are variable. They can change on a daily basis. All right, to wrap this thing up, I put this together today because, again, I see people missing this opportunity all the time, and it's so simple to set up one of these accounts. One feature I didn't mention is with virtually all these online high-yield savings instruments, you can link them up to your primary checking account, so it's super easy to transfer funds between accounts. Now, the other thing I want to mention, if you're interested in earning an even higher rate of return, things like government bonds, short-term government bonds, also known as treasury bills, and brokered CDs are paying around 5% right now. Again, we're recording this at the end of February 2023. But they're a little bit more technical. You got to know a little bit more. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll throw those links to a couple videos I did talking about those on the end here. Anyway, look, I want to say thanks for watching. Maybe you're hearing my kids screaming in the background. Do me a favor, give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. It just really helps kind of get the message out there. And I hope we'll see you in the next one.